So at 14, you were raped by your. Did anyone know that you were?
No.
No.
No. No.
No, and
not for a while, at least.
And so your brothers didn't know?
No.
Your family didn't know?
No, until, and this is kind of like part of the healing end of it, but I can, since you asked.
Hold up, real quick. Like, subscribe, comment below, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Geena the Latina Show. Okay, let's get back to the show. I wanted to do an episode today on the power of forgiveness, because forgiving others, forgiving yourself is like one of the hardest things that we will deal with as human beings, right?
Absolutely.
And we can spend our whole life thinking we forgave someone or thinking we forgave ourselves, when in actuality we can. And if we don't go through forgiveness, we can't move forward, right?
Yeah.
So I decided to bring my friend, Geena the Fiero, on. Thanks for coming.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
Jamie is one of the strongest women I know.
Oh, thank you.
And when you hear her story, if Jamie can forgive, you all motherfuckers can too. Is pretty much what I'm saying. So, and on top of that, you're just, you've done so much work on yourself, to be able to get to this point. So we'll get into all this, but let's start a little bit. I think getting to know who you are is crucial to knowing how you were able to forgive, right?
Yeah.
So take us back as far back as you want.
Okay. Well, I think the main pivotal point with my life was when I was 14. Two of my brother's friends raped me in my bedroom. And, you think about your bedroom, you think about your home, like that's sacred. It's safe.
Spot.
It's supposed to be safe. You're at home. And that was stripped of me at such a young age. And I remember two of them. And at the end, during the rape, while the rape was happening, I was screaming out to them because like these were my brother's friends.
So there were people you knew.
That I knew, that my family trusted, my brothers, they were like some of my brother's best friends. So it's like that just added to the pain. And I remember like crying out to them, why? Like, why are you doing this to me? Please stop. And I think at one point, one of them was like, it kind of hit his conscience and realized what he was doing. And he stopped and he left, but the other one didn't. And when he finished, he spit on me and he said, just remember, you deserve this. You're a whore. And I just remember laying there, like semen all over me, spit on me, just like.
You have never had sex at this point before?
I had.
Okay, not that it matters though.
I had.
But, okay,
yeah,
so but even then you're 14 years old, yeah.
And I think that's why I believed it to be true, because I'm like, I'm only 14. This is my home. I must be a whore. Like, this is true.
So you believe the story he told you?
Yeah. Like,
he was telling you that to make himself feel better.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like, or whatever. I will never know that answer, right? I'll never know that. However, I believed it. And that's what mattered most. And for the next like trajectory, 10 years of my life, I made that my belief. Like that was true. I was trash. I was a whore. I was a piece of shit. Like I continued to be in abusive relationships. I got raped again. Then I ended up with my daughter's biological dad, who beat me for the time frame that I was with him for 5 years. He would rape me during the course of our relationship.
And you felt like you deserved it.
Of course, absolutely. That was like,
I think that's like when people go through trauma and such a traumatic experience, and you start to believe, like, I mean, it doesn't even have to be that traumatic. It could be like someone telling you you're fat. Yeah. You start believing you're fat.
Yeah.
And then you live into that. And then you actually just overeat and you become fat.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Become that.
And that's why it's so important at such a young age, how you speak to your kids, how you speak to others, like, because people will hold on to those one things, right?
And how we speak to ourselves.
Well, how you speak to ourselves, right? You can tell yourself that, right? So at 14, you were raped by did anyone know that you were?
No.
And
not for a while, at least.
And so your brothers didn't know?
No.
Your family didn't know?
No, until, and this is kind of like part of the healing end of it, but since you asked, the one that left, like he actually came to my family and was like, I fucked up. Like I hurt. Oh, it makes me like, whew.
Hold up, pause. We got to take a second to acknowledge our food sponsor, Cravings Fruit Bar. Miguel, Fidel, what's up? They're out in Santee. If you live here in San Diego, they got tons of stuff. They've got fruit, chocolate-covered strawberries. They got tortas. They got chamoy, everything. Follow them at Cravings Fruit with a K, at Cravings Fruit. All right, let's get back to the show.
He knew what he did to hurt me. You know, like I like to believe that we're not our mistakes. And I believe that he didn't like he's a teenage boy. Like I can't ever understand what he was going through, but I would like to believe that he didn't just come into this world wanting to hurt me the way that he did. And I think that by me crying out,
Something hit him.
Yeah, whereas like, and then afterwards it sat with him.
For how many years? Like when did he come back to your family?
I don't remember exactly when, so I don't want to give wrong information, but I remember how powerful it was. But at that point, too much damage was done in my heart and in my soul. Like I almost didn't believe it. Like, how are you being fake? Is this real? Is this true?
So did these guys stay friends with your brothers after this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they were around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So not only do you have to deal with being raped, but your rapists are literally in your home.
Yes.
And no one knows.
Nobody knows.
Oh, man. And so that leads you into doing all these other things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And can we go into depth a little bit about that? So, you know, because again, we did another episode on you never know what someone's going through, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you turn to drugs and other things, but you'll get into, but no one knew why, right? So to your family, you thought, oh, she's acting out, so whatever. There's always a reason.
Right, exactly.
Right? So what happens after this, right?
Yeah, so I was pregnant at 16, had my daughter at 17, graduated high school, and then that's when I got real heavy into drugs. I was introduced to cocaine, and I was like, whoa, I don't have to feel anything right now. Like, I don't feel like trash anymore. I don't feel like, because
you hadn't dealt with what had happened, right? You just leaned into it versus like dealing with it, which, by the way, no 14-year-old knows how to like deal with trauma and lead into it, right? So you did what you knew best.
At that point, like nobody really talked about, like it was like very shameful, like very quiet. Very shameful. I feel like now people are more open to talking about it, but back then it was like, you don't talk about it, right? At all, like whatsoever.
Yeah, and we're barely, and still people keep it quiet, you know? That's why I love this generation, because they're so open with their feelings. And we're kind of like in the middle, like we were raised old school, but then we understand why, you know? I think it's important, even if it did happen 15, 20 years ago, if you haven't been open about it, like there is some healing to like just letting it out to whichever way. It could be to a journal. It doesn't have to be on a freaking podcast, you know? But so get into this. So you were introduced to cocaine.
And it numbed me, took away everything.
And your daughter is how old?
She was a year. Or even, I don't even know if she was a year yet, but yeah. And that was it. Then I turned to stripping. Then that turned me into escorting. Well, the cocaine then got to the point where it wasn't good enough. So then I went to meth and prescription pills. And it was like a daily, I would wake up if I went to sleep at all and put my daughter in the shower. I would go in the backyard and I would smoke some meth or snort some meth, whatever I decided. And then I would take her to school. And then if I was too high, I would take a bunch of prescription pills, smoke a bunch of weed, drink a bunch of alcohol. Then I'd go to work. Then on my 10:30 break, I would go to the bar, get drunk. And it was just like an up and down all day long. Like go to the bar, get drunk, smoke some more meth or snort some more meth, take some more pills, up, down, up, down, up, down. Because guess what? The whole time I was just numb. I didn't have to think about life. And not on top of that, I was so angry. So if anybody tried to tell me anything, I'm like, who the fuck are you to tell me? I'm a single mom. I used to get my ass beat. Like nobody can tell me what to do. Fuck everybody. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Like I was so mad at everybody and everything. And it was really sad because I was not a great mom. I was a really great caretaker, and I thought that was enough. Like I mean, I'm not prostituting, but I'm like selling my body, and I'm taking care of my daughter. She's in private school. She's in all-star cheer. Like she has a roof over her head.
Wait, so at what ages? Because by the way, I'm going to go for it a little bit.
Okay.
Her daughter is such a great human being. Like you have raised a great kid, and we'll get to that point, right?
Yeah.
And I think your story is a true testament of like maybe her first few years you weren't a great mom like we're about to get into,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I only know the last few years and that you raised a damn good human being, you know?
Thank you. She's pretty.
She's so great.
Yeah.
She's phenomenal.
You.
She's so wise beyond her years.
Yeah,
She's how old is she now?
23.
23.
Yeah.
She's amazing. So how old is this when it sounds like you were living a facade because you were putting her in cheer in private school, but then you were escorting at the same time.
Exactly.
So how was that? How did that balance out? Like, what were you doing?
It made sense to me at the time.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking
Did
straight.
no one know what was going on?
I had no idea.
So no one knew you were on meth? No one, like you were
They knew I had an alcohol problem.
Okay.
Like people thought I had an alcohol problem
But
because
it was
way more than that.
Okay.
Way more than, because I was sick all the time. Like whether it was because I was coming down, I didn't have drugs, I did have drugs, I did too many drugs, or I just was party too much. Who knows what it is?
And
like,
what age is this from? How old is Brittany at this time?
it was from ages 18. I stopped when I was 24.
So she was like 0 to 7. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you say escorting, like someone may not, I know that, but what did you do? Like, how is that? How do you find yourself into escorting?
So I actually had a friend at the time that, she was like one of my best friends growing up, and we did everything together, and she was stripping. So I was like, oh, perfect, easy money. Like in my mind, I wasn't thinking things through of like the repercussions of my actions. It was just like survival, survival, survival. And I'm like, okay, I need more money. I'm going to strip. Well, then, I don't want to speculate strippers, but more often that just leads to escorting because men may want more. So it was more her just like kind of like, hey, we're going to go to this guy's house. He would have his friends. We would have sex with them. They would have all the drugs we want, all the money we want, or all the like food that we want. They would take us to these like fancy restaurants. And I'm like, wow, I get drugs, I get alcohol, and all I have to do is have sex and I leave with $5,000. Like, this is easy.
Yeah,
like
right?
money, I'm already doing drugs. I'm already drinking. I'm already trash. So what does sex mean?
Yeah.
Like sex didn't mean anything to me at that time. So I'm like, this is perfect.
And someone may be watching this not think that this is like real life. This is real life in San Diego. Yeah. Like you grew up here in San Diego.
Yeah, born and
raised. Happens here. It's not, it's a really from what I've heard, and like even with younger in like high school, because when I used to do girls' conferences, they say one of the main things is like the trafficking and all that is so huge here. No one talks about it. It's like one of the number one things that they're like worried about. Like that's the number one thing, not the other stuff,
Yeah.
So let's take it back. So now you're like, how old are you at this point?
I think I maybe started at 22, I want to say.
I know your family. So
maybe.
Let me talk about it. So does your family know you're doing any of this?
Nobody. Nobody. I even had a boyfriend living with me, and I would have him watching my daughter while I left.
And he had no clue?
No idea. But he was also doing meth too. So
did he know that you were a stripper?
No.
He didn't know anything?
No.
And you would just go live this life and then come home.
It was like I was living a double life.
Wow. Okay. So then how do we get from there to like who I've known you for how many years? Like
14
years.
Yeah.
And since I met Jamie, she's been sober.
Yeah.
Does not drink, does not do anything. Yeah. And one of the most phenomenal human beings I've always felt so safe with you. Yeah. One thing that connected me with Jamie is that she's just so open and honest. Like she doesn't care like about her past. She does not, you don't care about that stuff, which I feel like has helped me like be more open. Like we've always like bonded from day one, right? So how do you go from like escort to everything you were doing, like crazy life, right? To where you're at now, I guess. What happens?
So the friend that introduced me to stripping and escorting, she went to rehab. And you have to understand, I never thought I had a problem. Like I was in survival mode. So I thought that this was life. I didn't think I had a drug problem. I didn't think I had an alcohol problem. Like I thought I was responsible and I knew everything.
Yeah.
So when she went to rehab, I thought, well, fuck, does that mean I have a problem? Because we did everything together. So I'm like, if she's going to rehab, that's a reflection on me. I must have a problem. And it was just like divine intervention that my brother knew a man by the name of Shaun Stevenson. And my brother had asked me to dinner with him. And I guess I had met him before at some point in my life that I don't remember because I was shit-faced and tried to fight somebody at a hot dog stand at some bar or something. I have no idea. And I remember, and I was high when I met him and went out to dinner. And
when you say you're high when you met him, does your brother or him know? No.
I don't think so.
You don't think
Maybe
so?
like, because I smoked so much weed and stuff.
There's so many people that like, so I grew up around addicts. And so I can tell immediately, right? But a lot of, if you didn't grow up around that, you'd be surprised how many people around you might be on drugs or might be you and you have no clue.
Have no idea.
Like I can pick it up real quick because I've been around it, but a lot of people have no clue. Right. Yeah. And so I'm assuming that a lot of people around you didn't really know the extent of it. Maybe they thought you drank or smoked weed, but like not anything crazy.
Had no idea.
Yeah.
Had no idea. So I remember sitting across from him. And so Shaun is, but I can explain to everybody else. He was 3 foot tall in a wheelchair. He was born with osteogenesis imperfecta, which is basically a fancy word for brittle bone disease. So he never walked a day in his life. And he had a very unique container to his body. And he's in his wheelchair and he's like wheeling around at raw sushi downtown, just the happiest little dude ever. And I'm like, damn, how is he so happy?
Yeah.
Because everybody thought that I was happy because I was fucked up all the time and I was this perceived happiness, but like inside I was dead.
Yeah.
I was dead. And I just remember thinking like, damn, I want what that guy has. Like, how do I get that?
And I wish, hopefully we could like put a picture in of here, but like he
still has Instagram still up at 3 foot giant. You can pull up.
Yeah. But like, and you look at someone like that who has really faced adversity and faced this, and those are the most inspirational people. And you're like, why the fuck am I like not happy? Right. I get that, So you see him and you have dinner and what happens?
And I just like, felt compelled. I'm like, I want what this guy has. After dinner at like, he was in town because he lived in Chicago and I had asked like, can we go hang out? And I just remember just having like these really deep conversations with him. And I could tell that like, I felt just like you said, you feel with me that you feel safe. Like I felt safe with him. And I just felt compelled. Like it's like divine intervention. Like God put him in my life for a reason to like lead me in another path.
Yeah.
And I don't remember that night I went home and that was like the first night that I actually slept through the whole night.
Wow.
Because I wasn't sleeping and I woke up and I was like, whoa. Something speaking in me, like something stirring up, like life when I had felt dead for so many years.
Yeah.
So I reached out to him on MySpace. This is how long ago it was?
MySpace,
yeah. And I just was like, I kind of just poured my heart. And he was like, okay, well, I need you to get sober for a month and come out and see me and basically do this like breakthrough session where you go in. It's like a bunch of neuro-linguistic practice where you go in and basically like take out all the bad and then like replace it with good. Essentially, that's how it works. But he asked me to get sober for a month and I'm like, fuck, like you have to remember, I'm like drinking, smoking weed, taking prescription pills, ecstasy, cocaine, meth, whatever, every single day, all day.
For how many years at this point too?
Since I was 18. So I'm 24 now.
So for 6 years. And then this guy's saying, well, before you can come see me, you need to get sober for a month.
Yeah, I'm like,
how do I do that?
Not happening. And I was like, I can't do that. Like, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen. He said, okay, can we agree to 2 weeks? And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, if I want this, like, I knew there was something, like, I wanted a different life. I wanted to be happy again. I mean, I would get so mad if I say I'm leaving the house and I put my daughter in the car and I get in the car and I realize I forgot my purse in the house. I would headbutt the steering wheel, punch because I forgot my fucking purse.
Yeah.
Like that, how silly. Like that's how much anger, but it was because I hated myself. I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
So I didn't stop using 2 weeks. I stopped like the Tuesday before. I flew out on a Friday and I stopped on Tuesday because it was so hard for me. I didn't know life sober.
Yeah.
Like to just stop
So you got
using,
sober maybe for like 3 days.
Yeah, which sucked because when I got there, I was so sick.
Yeah, that's because anyone that's been like, you can't just stop.
Cannot.
Like you're gonna have withdrawals.
I can.
You can.
It's possible.
But
it's
you
just
get
not fun.
Sick, right?
Yeah.
So you get it there, and what happens?
And I mean, that was it. It was 16 straight hours of just like really diving in. And, like at that time, I took pride in how crazy I was. I took pride that I would fight people and how angry, like it was this like badge of honor that I wore when it was like so ugly, But I didn't realize that like where that was coming from. So as we walked through my life, he would help me kind of reframe things. And at this point, I hadn't even told him about the escorting because I was so ashamed of it. Like I was so ashamed of that part of my life. But while I was there, the guy was texting me. And I remember like sitting there And he had texted me. I was
Which
supposed
guy?
One of the clients, I guess you could say.
Clients, yeah.
And he wanted me to fly to Pebble Beach in his private jet and just basically be his escort at this golf tournament for $25,000. And on one of our breaks, like I received this text. And so when we went back, it was like,
all right, hold up. This is like your 20-second Geena the Latina PSA. I need you to like, comment, subscribe below because we want to keep this show going. So if you're liking what you're hearing, please do us a favor and like, comment, subscribe below, or follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Geena the Latina Show. That's the Geena the Latina Show. I don't know why I can't talk. Back to the show.
I mean, are you kidding me? That sounds fantastic.
Like,
you know?
were you going to have to leave that day?
Well, I don't remember the exact timing of it, but Shaun realized like something had changed my mood.
Yeah.
And so he kind of pulled it out of me. And that
it's also like, so from an outsider's perspective, like here I am trying to do this work on me. I finally made the step. I was sober for as long as I could be. And then here's the biggest temptation in the world.
Yeah.
$25,000 to come to a golf tournament. Like it's kind of like that was like put in front of you for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
And it was a big test for me to just throw it all on the table. And that's like when I realized, and Shaun made me feel so safe to say, like, I can just say that. And I remember when I told him, he was like, okay. And I'm like, wait, okay? Yeah. Like, okay? I'm selling my body and you just say, okay? Like, you just accepted me. And I was like, whoa, this is new. Like, this is weird. This is uncomfortable.
Like he didn't judge you.
Yeah. And that was so different because I had judged myself for so long that I just expected everybody to see me the way that I was seeing myself every day, you know? Yeah. And so once we were able to like get it all out, he dug it out of me. We just went in and at the end, what he had me do, I'm probably going to get emotional because I do every time. He had me close my eyes and see myself at every stage of my shame in my life and close my eyes as if I'm talking to myself and tell that
14-year-old,
tell that 14-year-old, tell that 16-year-old, tell 18, 19, 20, it's okay and I forgive you. And when I opened my eyes, I was like, and I meant, you know, like tears are coming down my eyes. I got my eyes closed and I opened my eyes and I could not stop smiling. And the euphoria that I felt was like, wow, better than like any drug, any orgasm, any sexual experience, anything that I had felt like in my life. And I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna be okay. Like, I'm fucking free, finally. Like, wow.
And that was forgiving yourself.
Myself.
And that what he did was call, I think it sounds like inner child work.
There's a lot of that. Yeah.
But it's like so many times we go through lives and these things happen to us. Like what happened to you when you getting raped at 14 by your brother's friends, it's not your fault, but all of a sudden you brought in that shame, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden, so before we can even forgive them, we need to forgive ourselves, you know, and we need to forgive ourselves so let's give an example. What did you forgive yourself at age 14 for? Like what could, you know, from someone that like is looking in, it's like, what are you forgiving yourself for? You didn't do anything.
For believing I deserved it.
Yeah.
Like for believing like what they told me, for like all of the manipulation from like 14 to 24, those 10 years, like just really forgiving myself for that. Like I'm not that, I'm not trash, I'm not my mistakes. And that led into me being able to forgive them because like, I don't know what they went through in their life for them to believe that the way that they treated me that day was okay. Like, I have no idea. And like, I don't condone rape at all, but I really love to choose that we come into this world full of love and that something happens in our life, whether it's to us, whether we witness something, whatever it is that changes. I mean, look at me at 14. Like here I am full of love, full of life. And it got ripped from underneath me and what I did to myself. Like, you know, I'm probably like was rude to people, but I never like physically hurt anybody else. But the way that I destroyed myself and then not being a good mom for 7 years, like it's fucked up what trauma does to us. But like really opening my heart to just be like, you know what? I'm sorry for whatever you went through.
Yeah.
Because that sucks.
And so, and she, and I've talked to her so many times, she truly forgives her rapist.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can say that. Like you truly forgive them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, and that's what you need to do in order to move forward and become who you are today, right?
Yeah, it's freeing. Like it's freeing, like reliving, you know, I forget, I think there's like a proverb or something that it's like, oh, you want to seek revenge, dig 2 graves. Because it's true. You stay in the pain. You stay in the prison of hell. Like revenge doesn't get you anywhere but more mad, more angry. You're carrying that energy. It's like, like, oh yeah, fuck you. Well, fuck you. Like, that's not healing.
No.
That's not love. Like, I like to come from a place of love. Like, wow. Like, you miss that somewhere in your life. Like, where did you not receive the love that you thought that it would be okay to hurt somebody like this?
That's true. That
like,
is
you
true.
need love.
Yeah.
Love is always the answer, you know? Like, it really is.
For sure. Love is my superpower. So let's take it back to, so you meet with him and you wake up, you said, and you feel, right?
Yeah.
And what happens after that? So you're 24.
Yeah.
And then what happens after that?
Well, I went back home. I mean, I'm an extremist.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to change my phone number. I'm changing my friends. Because at that point I was
you decided to give up escorting.
Everything. Yeah, I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't need to do this anymore. Like, I'm happy. I'm fulfilled. And I just wanted my life to be different. And then I thought, like, I never thought that, again, I didn't think I had a drug problem or anything. But I was like, well, wow, I haven't drank or done drugs for this long. I wonder how long I could go. So I bought myself a little journal and like every day, or like a calendar, daily calendar, and I would write an X every day. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I remember Shaun telling me, like, you're going to get one point where it's going to be a year. I'm like, fucking, I hope. Like, how is that ever going to happen? And every day it was like, oh, I went 30 days. Wonder if I can go 60. Wonder if I can go 90. I'm like, oh my God, 100. And March 6th next year will be 17 years. Yeah, thank you.
That's amazing.
So it was like, just like every single day was just like, wow, I can do this. And it really just like built my confidence. And it hasn't been easy.
That's
like,
what I was just going to ask you. Did you have moments of, because some people may be watching that had a drug alcohol program, like how do you, I know you have those moments because I have family members that like, it's hard. You have to stay on it. I always think about one of my cousins who has been sober, who had the same kind of issue, has been sober for, I don't know, I want to say like 20 years, but he constantly works on himself.
Yeah.
He is a coach. He goes to AA meetings. He does and I've seen other family members who will go sober for a little bit, but they're not constantly working themselves and they have relapses and things like that. So, I mean, I've never had a problem like that, but I would just say like you have to continuously work on yourself. Correct?
Yeah. And you know, I'm glad that you asked because you know me, G, I lay it all on the table. I'm real, I'm straight up. And I can't sit here and tell, like, integrity is one of my highest values. And I can't sit here and tell everybody I've been clean the whole time. Because I haven't. Like, I've, taken MDMA, I've taken mushrooms, and I've even dabbled in cocaine a few times throughout these years. And it's been a struggle for me because what has happened each time is it pulled that shame back. It pulled that shame back. And then I would hate myself for it. Yeah. And because I'm like, here I am. Like, how can I sit here and talk about all these things? And people will come to me and I coach them. And then I lay my head down and I'm like, how can I say that if I did coke that day? Like, I'm a piece of shit. So I would like revert back to my shame. Yeah. And that's why, I haven't been able to tell you about my life, like my trip to Peru, but I finally got to a point in February where I was like, something is off. Like, something's off. Like, I'm happy. Life's going great. Like, I'm married now, like happily married. My husband and I have been married almost 11 years, been together almost 16. And life is great, but something's off. And so I just felt called to go to Peru.
And a lot of people, we could talk about that if you want, because I've, a lot of my friends go on these journeys to Peru. And I think one time I will, but what's in Peru? Because a lot of people, this is the type of show for that. Like, we'll probably do a whole nother episode on that. But So what's in Peru?
So, my friend and I have been talking about doing ayahuasca plant medicine for a long time. She signed up for this trip. Like, it was August of 2020. What are we in? 2022? Yeah. And so February of 2023 is when I was like, something's off, and I felt like called to this trip, ayahuasca.
Which, by the way, if you're watching, we did a whole episode on ayahuasca. Go back and watch it. My friend Caesar, who you know too.
Yeah.
He talks about, he explains how if you're called to it and like, everything, but we'll keep going.
Yeah. And I was. I mean, and everyone's like, oh, what are you trying to get out of it? And I'm like, that's the thing is I don't know. I knew that I was carrying a lot of shame. So I get down to Peru and there's this guy Slocum and he basically reads your energy, like, you know, does a reading on you. And he had said like, oh, there's something like stuck. I could feel like in your body here. It's, you know, sometimes a masculine, feminine. He's like, but I feel like it's a secret. And I'm like, I don't fucking have secrets. Like,
yeah, because you're like the most open book person I know. But okay.
And,
I can't wait
out of respect for people involved, like I don't want to like share this secret. Mm-hmm. However, when he said that, I'm like, no. And I sat and I thought about it and I'm like, oh, fuck.
You remembered something. It brought up something
did.
That you had probably completely forgot about.
And I have to also let you know, like rewinding a little bit for like the past 3 years, I would say, probably before that, I was sick all the fucking time.
Pause. It's Geena the Latina. Okay, so what you need to do right now, if you're liking the content, is you need to like, subscribe, and comment because we want to keep this show going. We need to like mess with the algorithm a little bit. So if you like the show, help us out a little bit and make sure you follow us at TikTok and Instagram at the Geena the Latina Show. Okay, let's get back to it.
Like to the point, one time I was getting an IV for hydration, half my body went numb. I was in the hospital. Crazy shit happened.
Yeah.
Nobody could ever find anything with me. Like nothing. They couldn't find anything wrong with me.
And that goes back to a lot of what we talk on these shows is that like we've nothing against the medical doctors, but if you feel like something is wrong with you, you got to keep searching. And sometimes it's more than what they can run your blood test and everything's fine. You're fine. But if you feel off, you better figure that out. Whatever it is, you better figure that out because it's going to manifest later on, right?
And that's exactly what happened to me. So I was like, fuck. So I told him, and he was the first person that I told. And I was like, because it's like, it's the shame again. It's like the shame. And I told him integrity is my highest value. And he's like, how can you say that when you haven't been living an integrous life? And I was like, it was like a knife in my heart. I was like, fuck. So he suggested that I go straight into tobacco. So it wasn't ayahuasca. I had to drink tobacco, which was the gnarliest experience. But basically the journey that I went on with the tobacco was first, what came up the first day was my brothers and my dad. And then I realized that I didn't feel protected as a little girl. Absolutely. So here I am again. I thought that I healed through all this.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like I thought that I healed through all of it and I haven't. It wasn't like my dad and my brothers were bad. It was just more of an awareness, which then made me realize like why I'm so overprotective over everybody else. And I kind of carry that with me.
You're like mama bear to everyone.
Because I didn't feel protected. So now I have to protect the world.
Which is a lot of
it's just heavy.
A lot to put on yourself. Yes,
it's heavy. So then the next day I drink some more tobacco. And then what came up was like that I'm beautiful and that Free to Be Me by Lauren Ingalls, like a Christian song. And then Christina Aguilera song kept playing in my head. So I'm like, oh, I'm beautiful. I was broken. Now I'm beautiful. Yay, I'm fixed. And it was like, Slocum suggested I go deeper. So then I go deeper and I'm like fighting because tobacco is disgusting to drink tobacco. Like
I didn't even know you could drink tobacco.
God,
it's disgusting.
You drink it and you drink water and you purge,
and
right?
This is in Peru.
This is in Peru. I'm in a little tree house, no electricity, and the cold water. There's like a composite that you do your business in, like not even a toilet.
It's
like,
really out in the middle of nowhere and it's designed
exactly. No phones, no.
Lots of people do these spiritual journeys in Peru. Yes.
And I'm just like...
And you're drinking gross tobacco.
Gross tobacco. And I'm like fighting it and fighting it and fighting it. And I'm super sick. I can't throw up, but I felt like shit. And so like what I learned then was like how many times I try and fight life. Like why do I fight life and try and control it and do things my way and look at where it's taken me, that if I could just surrender to life, what would happen? So that was like my biggest learning. The next day I was like, I'm in full surrender. And it's interesting because the medicine speaks to you as loud as like you and I are speaking right now. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's real and it's true. Whether it's God speaking through the medicine, your unconscious mind, like whatever it is that you choose to believe, like it was loud. So I surrendered to it, laid down. I mean, and this is where energy for me was so crazy because I'm like the medicine, it said, lay down on the ground. And I'm in the fucking middle of the jungle. There's insects and like things. And it told me to lay down. And I'm like, fucking on the ground.
I'm
like,
already out here. What else do you want from me?
I'm like, fine. I laid down. And this is what was so crazy. Like these bugs and and insects would come towards me. And what I kept hearing was, need not worry, be still, breathe. And so I'm like, okay, I'm surrendering. And they would literally like come up to me and then like turn around and go away. And I'm like,
Wow.
whoa, like it's energy,
Yeah.
right? And if
yeah.
I just trust and I surrender, well, then I'm like, have this blissful experience. Like I had a hammock in my tree house. It was like, go back to your happy place. I'm so proud of you. And I'm like swinging and I'm so happy. And I'm like, the best way that I could describe it was like my physical, mental, spiritual like bodies just like went and like locked together. And I just like felt like I was floating. But then I got sick. Like I got super sick after and I felt like shit. And I was like, fuck this, all pissed off. Like, I just surrendered and now now I'm sick.
It's purging though, right?
Yes, but I had already purged.
Okay.
But so this was what was most powerful for me was because it said, what is your payoff from being sick all the time? And I was like, oh, shit. And I realized, and this is very disgusting to admit, it's not something I'm proud of, but I had realized that I was manifesting being sick to get my husband's attention.
And if you don't believe that's real, that's real. A lot of stuff we do, like, explain that a little bit if someone may not understand that concept.
So
because you felt your husband was not giving you attention.
Or not loving me the way that like I'm so just like lovey. This is, so I put these expectations and stipulations on how I felt like he was, and my husband is such a good man. You know that. He's an amazing man. And it's like, I wasn't allowing him to love me the way that he knows how to give love. I was just telling him what he was doing wrong physically, energetically, everything. It was like, you're doing like, and then whenever I'm sick though,
he shows love.
And I fucking hated it. That's what was like, that was the worst part about it all. Was like, I was calling this false attention. Not only that, I wasn't able to recognize when my husband was like showing me his love. Not only that, I'm not giving him a space to give me love. Yeah. I'm shaming him, but really it was because I was still carrying so much shame on myself for my secret.
Yeah.
So I could keep going on and on about my ayahuasca thing, but that was like my biggest thing. The ayahuasca wasn't that big of a realization for me. It was more of the tobacco. And like, once again, focusing in to realize that like, number one, I can manifest the pain because I haven't been sick. And it's like,
you haven't been, so since then you haven't been sick?
No.
And
I can choose to be sick if I want to be sick. I can be strong if I can be in pain if I want to be in pain. And I don't have to live that way if I choose not to. Like my life can be beautiful if I choose not to. And I get to release the shame off my heart again and speak of it and like free myself.
Yeah. I want to share a quick story about how we manifest sickness, right? And if you don't believe this, it really is a thing. And I would really take a second to self-examine. So when I was in the hospital for 10 days, they did not know what was wrong with me. I mean, my doctor was breaking his back over like giving every test. They brought in all these specialists and like literally nothing. They couldn't figure out. The only thing that would happen is I had to be in the hospital for 2 days without a fever. So I'd be without 2 days. And right when you get to that 48 hours, my fever would spike, right? Got to stay in another day and continuously for 2 days. And they didn't understand why every day right before the 48 hours, my fever would spike and then it would go away, right? And so I talked to one of my spiritual healers, which we have all these, Susan Harris, who, by the way, we did an episode with her too, if you want to go back. She's great. Anyways, I called her and I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I remember I was in the hospital and what she had told me was, you have got so used to being sick that you don't know what it feels like to feel better. Yeah. So your body, you're literally making, right when you know you're about to be released, your body, right, is about to release the hospital. No, I'm going to make myself sick.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Because that's all you know. Mm-hmm. So what she had me do is write in the journal what it feels like to be healthy, right? And even though I didn't fully believe it because I had been sick for so long, you lean into that. Like I am healthy, I am good, I can leave the hospital, like all these things, right? Yeah. The next day, I was at my 48 hours, no fever. It was released, and I was in a hospital, and I was talking to my doctor, and he was like, so like he was literally like bringing in all these specials, and I told him, I said, look, I know you don't believe in this woo-boo stuff, but this is what happened. He's like, you know what? Whatever works. Like you do what you need to do, I'll do what I need to do to get you better. And I have not been sick since then. Like I've been feeling the best I've ever been. Like it's just crazy. But my body was telling, like how you said you were making yourself sick. Every time I was about to go to the hospital, I was like, nope, I'm getting sick because that's all I knew. So you really have to like reprogram your, and it takes work because sometimes as, my friends healers who are in the room right now will know, like sometimes you lean back into like feeling sick and like, oh my God, because that's all you know for so long, right? And you have to really recognize it. And it's a lifelong process that you have to like how you said, you thought you had forgiven and like got over this trauma of being raped, but like it came back later, right? And I think that's okay. I think so many people think that like once you deal with something, you're just going to move on. It's like, especially our biggest issues are always going to come back. But the goal is to, Daphne's in the room one time, she told me recently, like, is to make them smaller. Like to make them,
I like that.
Like we were talking about how like recently I don't feel safe because, not to put other people in blast, but close family members had drug problems and they were gone a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I never felt safe at home. I was always the person who took care of everybody. I was an adult really young, right? And to this day, right? And so with certain people in my life now, it shows up again. Like, why am I so upset with, like, say, this coworker? Because I don't feel safe with them. I don't trust them. I don't whatever, right? But, it's not showing up with my boyfriend. And she pointed out that, like, this is good that it's not showing up with your boyfriend because that means you've worked on yourself. Because it may be just like someone you don't feel safe with that you only met a day. You know, like my point in saying is that like I know I've done work because I'm not bringing in a boyfriend in my life or someone super close to me that I don't feel safe with. It's more like one-offs a little bit further. Sure, it's annoying, but it's something I could deal with. So like, I guess our traumas will always come back, but the more you work on yourself, the further they are to you, right?
And
and she was like, she literally told me, like, I don't know if you know, she's in the room right now. She told me last week, it's like, this is great. It's not your boyfriend that you feel safe with your brother. That's great. Like, you're not manifesting that close. It's just someone that's like 2 people away. That's, you can deal with that. You can learn that,
I think too. And then we were like able to realize like to create an emotional boundary for ourselves. Rather than like repeating the pattern over and over again. Like we're able to recognize it and be like, okay, whoa, this isn't working. Like something's stirring up in me. And this isn't like, I know where it's coming from. Like I know it's from my trauma and everything, but it's like, okay, what do I do from it?
And recognizing those things is part of the healing. Because people say, what I do, just recognize it. Recognize when those emotions are starting to fill up. Recognize when those old patterns are starting, and just recognize you honestly don't really need to do anything. Recognizing it, feeling it, move on, and not going down that path of like recognizing, I've gone through shit and it's going to come up again, but thank you and goodbye kind of.
I'm not my mistakes and it doesn't have to own me. Like, that's it. You know? And neither are other people.
No, absolutely. So I want to get back to the forgiveness of, how did you come face to face with one of those guys?
So it's so funny that you asked me that because the level of forgiveness that I have chosen to achieve is the one that apologized to my family and me. I actually walked down the aisle with him at my brother's wedding. He was in my brother's wedding and we walked down the aisle.
Wow.
Yeah. And I love him. I think he's like, it is truly like an example of like, we are not our mistakes, and like being able to like open my heart and forgive him and give him that love. Now he can love himself, or like it gave him, I mean, I'm not saying that I like made him love himself.
Yeah, because
but
he was probably holding a lot of guilt, and we're not here feeling bad for rapists per se.
Right.
But you got to remember he was a kid too, right? Yep. And you are a true example that like, if you can walk down the aisle with the guy that raped you, I mean, who are we to like, why can't we forgive my coworker? Why can't I forgive? It's just like crazy, right? Wow.
Yeah. And it's just so freeing. Like, and to me, like to be able to love somebody and give them love and like receive the love back. Like, what do we want to choose? Like, what is the choice? Like, what would have happened if I would have just stayed angry and stayed like in such a like negative space and carried all of that my whole life? Like, would it have changed like him too? And he carried the shame and felt it. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, like all I can do is think about now. And like, that's what I choose to do, like with my life, anybody in my life.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I choose to come from love always. I mean, not always, but like
no,
it takes
pretty
me
much.
a fucking second,
no,
dude. Sometimes
I will say you're being harsh on yourself. You are always like, you don't judge at all. I love that.
Yeah.
You can, I feel like you're someone you can go to with anything. You literally are not going to judge. I'm like, I could be like, Jamie, I have a drug problem, which I don't. But like, you're like, okay, what are we going to do to fix this?
Right,
like,
right.
let's get you on the path to you need to go.
Yeah,
you know?
because I feel like it's so important. Like Shaun did that for me that day, to be able to say, this is me, and throw it on the table and not be judged was like, that helped me. That gave me the ability to say, whoa, now I can accept myself. Like I don't have to carry that shame. I don't have to carry that guilt. And I was able to forgive myself.
Yeah.
So like how can I give back? Like it's about paying it forward. Like how can I give back to the world and give that to people? You know, like how can I do that? Like come to me with whatever it is that you have, and I'm going to love you through it.
Like you're going to be Shaun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I would love.
And you're living on his legacy. Can we talk about him a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, Shaun is no longer with us.
Yeah.
And
we'll dedicate this episode to him.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. He, you know, as I said, he was in a wheelchair, and it's so interesting because people have thought, and I hope that this brings light to people, that he passed away due to his condition, but it wasn't.
Oh.
He fell backwards in his wheelchair. Like him and his wife were going to check out a new gym that he was going to be working at. And he was married and has an amazing wife that I'm like very, very close to. She's one of my best friends still. Anyway, he rolled back, and he was going down his garage, and he was in a new wheelchair, and it tipped backwards.
Oh my God.
And the bar in the back didn't stop it, and he hit the back of his head. So they took him to the doctor, and he had a hematoma, and they had to open him up. And when they opened it up, it exploded, and he died instantly. So that was in 40. Yeah. And that was in 2019. And, you know, I was doing coaching and speaking at the time, and it kind of took the wind out of my sails.
Yeah.
And I let it, like, I actually didn't let myself mourn his death for a while, because for me, it was like, well, who am I to like, he was like, I mean, second to my husband, he was like my rock, but he wasn't my husband. Like he wasn't my son. So who am I to mourn? Like I didn't allow myself to mourn, you know?
Yeah. But he was really important to you.
So important to me.
He changed your life. He literally changed your life.
And he would be so pissed if I said that. Like
he changed your life. Well, like, you changed your life.
Exactly.
I know that.
Yes.
But Shaun, we're going to give you some credit too.
Yes, fucker. Yes, we are. Because like he gave me the ability to change my life. And showed me how. And like, even though I'm not, you know, like now I was trying to have a coaching business and a speaking business. And then of course COVID happened right after that. But I just, now it's like, that's just what my heart is called to do. Like I don't do it as a business, but when people need my help, like I'm 100% there because I feel like that's my purpose. Like I'm here to use my testimony. Like everything that happened for me. And I get to like take all of that and give back to the world. Like however, just share my heart with the world.
And that's what you're doing right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for being so open and honest and raw and vulnerable. Yeah. I know you all the things, but like a lot of people cannot be like that. And I think I always tell people like when they come on the show, that's the point of this, to like, at least if someone relates to one thing you said, then like you did your job. So I know you're not doing coaching and speaking and all that. She was like doing all this, but you know, I still make her speak at my events. Where can people find you, or like, would you want them to reach out to you? What do you want?
I mean, yes, like that's like my heart.
Like Jamie will literally like do
like
that.
I want that so bad for, you know, people that, because people just need a chance. Like they just need a chance to be like, fuck, like let me just like share this with you and like receive love back. Like that's what's so important. Like I feel like once somebody can actually feel that love and acceptance, it just opens up a whole new segue for them in their life.
And I think you'll be back to the speaking and coaching eventually. Like it's pretty obvious to me, but we'll let her have a break. But for now, you can find her on Instagram
at Geena the Fiero.
At Geena the Fiero with 2 R's.
With 2 R's.
With 2 R's. Jamie. Is there last word of advice for someone who in their heart is if it's hard for them to forgive someone? It doesn't have to be as extreme as you, but like anything, it could be an ex, it could be yourself, it could be like any last words of wisdom for people who are having a tough time forgiving right now. I would just ask yourself, like, you know, are you actually coming from love? Like, how can you put yourself in this person's shoes and give them empathy to realize like we didn't
come into this world to be this way.
Yeah.
Like they're not their mistakes. And like, are you coming from a place of love or are you coming from a place of pain?
Yep.
Because pain can be so much louder than love, but love can be so much more freeing and healing.
Yeah. And that could be to someone else or it could be to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Most importantly, probably to yourself.
To yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on the show. I love you.
I love you too. Thank you.